The real evil in America is not white flesh or black flesh. The real evil in America is the idea that undergirds the setup of the Western world. And that idea is called white supremacy.
Hello YouTube, welcome to the People Dem. Happy Friday. My name is Yolanda and welcome to Flash Black Friday, where every Friday I will flash black to a revolutionary hero. But today I am flashing black to an event that was very historical and made an impact within the community. That is, guess what? You already know the answer, black. If you're interested in hearing or learning about Black history, pause this video. Go and like and subscribe so that you can get notified every single time I upload a new video. Today's topic, I decided to talk about an event, right? I did state that earlier. So the event that I'm going to be talking about is the Million Man March. If you haven't learned of it, well then you would have heard of it here on Flash Black Friday. The Million Man March was held October 16th, 1995 in Washington, D.C. The march was led by Minister Louis Farrakhan, a leader of the Nation of Islam, and it was directed by a man named Benjamin F. Chavez Jr. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. And he was the director of the National Association for Advancement of Colored People. This march was a political demonstration with hopes to bring a spiritual renewal, to instill a sense of personal responsibility in the African American men, to help to improve the conditions of African American people as a whole. Reports had stated that just over 1 million Black men gathered around the National Mall in Washington, D.C. And they were there to proclaim their rights, to basically atone their failures as men, and to accept the responsibility as head of the household. The men in attendance to this march were Muslims, they were Christians, they were Hebrews, they were nationalists, they were Pan-Africanists and civil rights organizations. These people, they came and they showed up. They were both rich and poor, a commoner or a celebrity. Some traveled from different parts of America to attend this march. And for nearly 10 hours, these men, they listened and they learned from each other. They shared their knowledge. They were even fasting. On that day, there was a strong sense of unity and a strong spirit of brotherhood, far stronger than any before. These men, they hugged each other. They laughed with each other and they cried with each other.
We are a wounded people, but we're being healed. But President Clinton, America is also wounded. And there's hostility now in the great divide between the people. Socially, the fabric of America is being torn apart. And it's black against black, black against white, white against white, white against black, yellow against brown, brown against yellow. We are being torn apart. And we can't gloss it over with nice speeches, my dear Mr. President.
This march gained a lot of media attention. I mean, of course, it is Black men, so. While the world tuned in, they did not see thieves or thugs. They didn't see criminals or savages, like how the world had portrayed them to be. A mightily different picture of the Black man was painted in America that day, as they demonstrated their willingness to bear the responsibility as men to improve the community and themselves. So why did this march take place? The march was used to place issues back on the nation's political agenda. African American leaders, they totally understood these social and economic issues that was facing the Black community as a result of policies. Many Blacks, if not all, believe that these politicians ultimately failed the Black community. They messed over like the most vital dimensions of the crisis in international capitalism, and then had the nerve to blame it on urban Black for domestic and economic policies that threatened to produce record-setting deficits, massive unemployment, and an uncontrolled inflation. Black folks were facing an unemployment rate nearly twice that of whites. The poverty rate was more than 40%. Their family income was 58% that of a white household. And Black men between the ages of like 16 to about 19 were facing an unemployment rate of up to 50%. 11% of Black men were unemployed. Around this time, Black men were being murdered at a rate of 72 men per 100,000. Now, that might not seem like a lot until you compare it to the 9.3% of white men that were being murdered by the police. Now, law enforcement and prisons were being blamed for this, of course. It was found that they were jailing more Black men than colleges housed. Talk about reform, right? Environmental hazards were making the lives of Blacks unstable and unlivable. Plus, there was a gap in regards to prenatal care for Black women and children since the closing of inner city hospitals. There was a lot of speakers that came out to this march, and it wasn't just men. Some women came out to speak their thoughts. Some of those names that you might recognize would be Rosa Parks, Queen Mother Moore, Betty Shabazz, Dorothy Heights, Maya Angelou, then Jesse Jackson, Martin Luther King III, Minister Raoul and Ishmael Muhammad, Reverend Jeremiah Wright, Reverend Benjamin Chavez, and of course, Minister Louis Farrakhan. I definitely do not have a look in mind, so bear with me. Now, Dr. Warhill actually had some comments in regards to the march, and I quote, "The spirit, the energy, and the ideas that were articulated on that day still resonate among the activists and organizers and thinkers and the masses of Black men who participated in 1995. Although it may not appear that the energy and the spirit and impact of that day is still with us, it has manifested itself with us today as Black men are engaged in numerous projects inspired by the Million Man March." Growing up Black, you begin to almost immediately recognize that you're born with 3 strikes against you. Strike 1, insufficient prenatal care. And a lot of Black women can attest to that today to confirm that it is true. A lot of white doctors and doctors have admitted that they have learned in school that Black women do not feel as much pain as the next female. I don't know where you guys got that from. Oh wait, I do. Strike number 2, inferior education opportunities. Now, I know as well as the next Black person growing up in a school in America and being blessed with that opportunity that it was a little bit harder for us to strive and push through, despite what we had up here. And strike 3, jobless parents. Now, that doesn't mean that your parents aren't working or they don't have a job, but even jumping from position to position, getting cut, or, ending up having to go on unemployment or losing their positions, being more expendable than the next co-worker. So the House of Representatives had actually made a $1.1 billion cut to some of the nation's poorest public schools, which of course we already know which color those students might be. They also made a $137 million cut from a program called Head Start, which resulted into cutting over 45,000 preschoolers okay, preschoolers from a crucial early start program. This march ended up gaining a lot of media coverage. This ended up resulting in many women and children across the world sitting down and tuning in. Black women and children were encouraged to take the day off to show their support. So, of course, many women and children spent the day at home watching the event on TV. They would participate in the day of fasting and just took an absence from their daily activities. So there's no work, they didn't go to school, there was no like playing around. It was a day to tune in and to rejuvenate the faith within Black men. And a lot of Black men who were not in America at the time also did tune in because, like I said, this was around the world. The National Mall, where this march was held in, was left just as clean as it was before the march took place. A lot of individuals describe the Million Man March a miracle, like a glimpse of heaven. After this march, it was reported that over 1.7 million Black men registered to vote. What? And organizational membership skyrocketed. Like, yes, they was working. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan set out 8 steps to atonement. The first of 8 steps to atonement, pointing out the wrong. Step number 2, acknowledging the wrong. So in this context, what we're talking about in regards to the word acknowledgement is basically admitting that you, in fact, were not right. Step number 3, confessing your fault. Step 4 was repentance. Step number 5 is the atonement. We must be willing to do something in expiation of our sins. And number 6, of course, is forgiveness. Step number 7 is reconciliation and restoration. And last but not least, step 8, a perfect union with God. For He is who is guiding us through freedom. So after this march, a lot of Black men, like I said, registered to vote. Some joined churches and community organizations, and they recommitted themselves to their family and their friends and their neighbors. This march was not a demand on politics or into gaining the government's attention. This was more focused on a call for introspection. Minister Louis Farrakhan encouraged many Black men to clean up their act, to clean up their lives and be better, do better, to become better fathers, husbands, neighbors, friends. A small quote by Minister Louis Farrakhan: "All we've got to do is go back home and make our communities a decent and safe place for us to live." Now, I really like what Mr. Benjamin Chavez Jr. stated in regards to the march. Do you remember him? He was the director of the march. In his words, he said, "It would be incorrect to say that we made no progress. And it would also be incorrect to say that all is well." Sometimes it feels like we have not made enough progress. And you know what? Everything happens in due time. So I still have faith. So let's talk about the 5 impacts that this march has made. Well, it mobilized Black men to be more involved within the community. It definitely increased the Black votes. It even sparked an increase in Black adoption. I thought that was very, very cool to hear. It also showed that Black men could rally around and come together in harmony and peace for a common cause. It showed that they could be peaceful. And last but not least, this march actually created a lot of spin-offs. For example, the Million Women March. I probably would have been there. The Black Star Project, the Million Father March, the Million Hoodie March, and there's of course more, but those were the ones that kind of stuck out to me because I was like, ooh, those are interesting, more intriguing. I definitely loved the way that it turned out and the results that it brought forth. But like Benjamin Chavez said, it may feel like we do not see it, but it's definitely there. Do you feel that this Million Man March had truly made an impact within our community? What did you get out of this Million Man March? And do you feel that it should be something that we bring back to life for the generation of 2020? With all of the protests and everything that's going on around the world right now, and the police brutality, do you feel that this is something that we as a Black community should discuss once again? If you enjoyed this video or you learned something new today, make sure you go and like and subscribe. And leave a comment down below. Tell me what you learned. I just want to say thank you so much, guys, for tuning in on yet another Friday. Happy Friday. And remember, have enough courage to start and enough heart to finish. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, learn something new when? Every day. God bless you guys. Bye.
We are a wounded people, but we are being healed.